What's going on, guys? Sam Adams here, and welcome to another episode of The Drop. This week, it's a pretty solid week considering how late we are in the season for video game releases. We have Borderlands 2 VR coming to the PlayStation VR. On top of that, Insurgency Sandstorm is coming out on the PC. Earth Defense Force 5 is also hitting on the PlayStation 4. Tons of awesome games to talk about this week, even though we have passed the majority of the bulk of the big releases for the fall season for 2018. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. To start things off this week, we have Borderlands 2 VR as our headliner coming out on the PlayStation VR. The iconic shooter-looter gets in your face. Virtually immerse yourself in the untamed world of Borderlands. Step into the boots of a treasure-seeking vault hunter armed with 87 bazillion guns on a quest to line your pockets with loot. Blast bandits with real-world aiming, punch psychos in the mouth, race across the desert in stolen bandit vehicles, and free Pandora from Handsome Jack's clutches. Virtually slow time. Borderlands 2 VR includes new features unique to the VR experience to empower vault hunters in their fight against Handsome Jack. With badass mega fun time, aka BAMF time, nice. Players can use this new slow-mo ability to literally slow the speed of the game temporarily to set their next attack. In addition, with the option to teleport, players can glide across Pandora as gracefully as Claptrap, if he had grace. Become a virtual vault hunter. Take on the role of one of 4 playable classes: Siren, Commando, Gunzerker, and Assassin, each with unique combat styles and updated skills that leverage the new VR functionality, including the new BAMF time ability. Whether crushing enemies with Maya's Siren powers, calling in saber turret reinforcements as Axton, feeling that heft of dual-wielding machine guns as Salvador, or the satisfying swing of Zero's sword and an enemy back, Borderlands 2 VR immerses players like never before. And of course, you get virtually rich. Not literally rich, virtually rich. Borderlands 2 VR brings shoot and loot mechanics to VR with bazillions of procedurally generated guns and gear, each with their own capabilities and modifiers. Procedurally generated shields, grenades, relics, class mods, and more round out your Vault Hunter's arsenal for maximum power and mayhem that will all ultimately help you get the loot that you so desperately deserve. So for those that play Doom VFR, this game looks to be somewhat similar in nature to that. And for those that didn't, essentially, instead of moving like you normally would with a joystick, you pretty much go from one location to the next by slowing down time and selecting where you want to go, therefore changing your position, and you kind of move about the level that way. It's not the best way to, maneuver yourself in a game, but considering how new VR technology actually is, developers are still trying to figure out the best way to move about within the game world, and this seems to be one that works for the moment, and so that's what the devs decided to go with. Now, overall, I will say this is a pretty cool addition to the VR lineup, especially on the PlayStation VR. Up until this point, there have been some pretty good standout games that have proven the future of VR is bright, but nothing that's really taken on such a big name like Borderlands. And so to see them throwing some money behind this project and saying, here, let's see what VR can do, that kind of proves to me that VR does in fact have a future, especially with big AAA titles, but we will have to see how this one actually does. At the end of the day, it's all about if players enjoy it and, of course, how much money it does bring in. So for those that are fans of the over-the-top Borderlands humor and action-packed glorious explosions, this one is going to be right up your alley. For those that are early adopters of the PlayStation VR, this is going to be one that you almost have to have for your library, and of course, it's going to probably be a pretty big seller this holiday season, considering that there were many PlayStation VRs on sale over Black Friday. So we'll see how all of that shakes out on an episode of Caffeinate, but as for right now, what you need to know is that Borderlands 2 is coming to the PlayStation VR this week. Next up, we have Insurgency Sandstorm coming out on the PC, and it is a team-based tactical FPS based on lethal close quarters combat and objective-oriented multiplayer gameplay. Sequel to the indie breakout FPS Insurgency, Sandstorm is reborn, improved, expanded, and bigger in every way. Experience the intensity of modern combat where skill is rewarded and teamwork wins the fight. Prepare for a hardcore depiction of combat with deadly ballistics, light attack vehicles, destructive artillery, and HDR audio, putting the fear back into the genre. An intense atmosphere, putting the terror into modern combat. Move with speed and caution as you push through the war-torn environments of a fictional contemporary conflict in the Middle East. Death comes fast, ammunition must be carefully managed, and the environment must be tactically navigated at every step towards victory. Insurgency refined and expanded. For the first time in an Insurgency game, customize your character to show your veterancy with diverse sets of clothing, uniforms, accessories, and character voices. Coordinate fire, support with your team, engage enemies with vehicle-mounted machine guns and go head-to-head in small-scale, high-speed competitive matches. Wield new weapons and new upgrades to outmaneuver, outflank, and outsmart the enemy. And of course, Insurgency Sandstorm brings you war at its realest. Continuing Insurgency's acclaim as the most atmospheric shooter, Sandstorm is built on Unreal 4 to bring its gritty close-quarters combat into a whole new era of realism. Skill is rewarded and survival is paramount. Feel every bullet and fear every impact. First thing I want to make very clear is that if you go into Insurgency Sandstorm expecting Call of Duty, that's not what you're going to get. If you go in expecting Battlefield, that's a little bit closer to what you're going to get, but not even that. It's a little bit more tactical than that and much more realistic. For those that did not play the first game, Insurgency as a franchise is way more realistic in comparison to Call of Duty or even something like Battlefield. When a bullet hits, you feel it. It's not messing around. And so for those that are more hardcore in terms of what they want from their gameplay, this is going to be one that you might want to check out, especially if you are a big fan of military shooters. Now, I will say it's not the best looking game in the world right now when it comes to graphics, but it is only $30 at launch, which is pretty impressive if I do say so myself. So, there are plenty of free weekends to come, I am sure, and many discounts in the future, but if you are a fan of military-grade realistic shooters, then you might want to check out Insurgency Sandstorm, which is launching this week on the PC and coming to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One in the first chunk of 2019. And to round out this week's big releases, we have Earth Defense Force 5 coming out on the PlayStation 4 in the West. It's been out for about a year worldwide, but I will say that this is the first time we're seeing it localized to our region, so I thought that I would go ahead and include it. But become one of the soldiers of EDF and exterminate the invading aliens. Protect peace on Earth. And considering the time of year, I would add, and mercy mild. Human-looking aliens appear for the first time in the series. What are the unprecedented and intellectual alien beings from another planet called Primer? A series-first enemy alien finally appears. The battle with this intelligent enemy produces unprecedented deep despair. You're definitely dragging me into this one while leading the player to the most fun yet, as EDF must confront them with courage and wisdom. And of course, more content than ever with online co-op mode. Includes more than 100 missions in 5 difficulties and 1,000 plus usable arms. The 2 players co-op mode can also be played on a single screen, and all missions can be played in online co-op mode with up to 4 other players. Control 4 combatants and join the battle with other EDF members living in the real world. When it comes to video games, Earth Defense Force is quite frankly just strange. No offense to anybody that likes it, it has its own charm. It's just a very strange video game. But for those that want to shoot some aliens, Earth Defense Force 5 is coming out this week on the PlayStation 4 in the West, and it's gotten pretty solid reviews. They're right around an 8 out of 10, so if it sounds like something you might be interested in, then give it a whirl on the PlayStation 4 this week. And finally, to round out today's show, we have some honorable mentions. First off, Guacamelee 2 is coming out on the Nintendo Switch alongside Salt and Sanctuary, and on top of that, Atari Flashback Classics is coming out on the PlayStation Vita. Long live Vita. And so that rounds out today's episode of The Drop. If you enjoyed it, be sure to drop me a like down below. And in the comments section, let me know what you think about the games that are coming out this week. And if you happen to be brand new to the channel, this is a show that is hosted once a week. There's much more content on the channel and a daily gaming news podcast hosted live over on twitch.tv/SamuelAdamsLive if you did want to check that out. But as for right now, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the day. I will talk to you soon. Peace.